Well, here we are again, folks. This time with a commission for Bailey's Jeep. He calls it Snowflake. I'm not entirely sure why. After having a few discussions with him about it, it seems like he's pretty brutal to that truck. Regardless, it's his baby and we're going to do it upright for him. Now, just so that we're clear on what I'm doing right now, I'm trying to save this blister. Yeah, I think that'll work. You all know the drill, so let's get to getting these pegs out. Well, that was pretty easy. Now, the metal casting for the Jeep is actually pretty good, except it's got all these holes in it. The roof, the tailgate, the hood, they're all going to have to be filled in. Bailey's Jeep doesn't have any of the crazy 4x4 stuff on the body. Aside from that, though, this is actually pretty close to what he needs. I'll fill in the tailgate here with body filler as well as the hood and the roof. The interior doesn't need a lot of modification, but that rear tire is definitely going to have to come off. It's a good thing it's plastic and not the real thing. There's only one other major body mod that's going to need to be done, and that's the fender flares. Again, Bailey's doesn't have those. Let's get the body into the goo while we do some other stuff. Now the glass molding is, let's call it a little awkward. It's got that giant roof rack on it and it's got to go. If I'm perfectly honest, I should probably say that I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be able to save all of the glass. Luckily though, the rest of the build's going to go pretty easy. The wheels and tires are the same size, and his truck even has the nifty push bar that's in the Mattel molding. Yeah, they may not be exact, but those are pretty convincing. Let's get this thing rinsed off and then get it polished up. I had somebody recently ask me why I polish it before the body's actually complete. Well, the answer is shut up. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Shortly, I like to have everything clean and polished so that it's easier for me to look at the body. I have old eyes and I like to be able to see the flaws. Like the fender flares that don't need to be here. I'm going to change out from the standard sandpaper wheel to my paddle wheel. It's my new favorite tool. It tends to work very well along flat surfaces. Luckily, this generation of Cherokees has a lot of flat surfaces. You see what I mean? You can just barely see either of these fender flares. One or two more strikes with a sanding wheel around the roof and the fender flares, and I think we might be able to put some body filler into it. Since the hood scoops are basically the way that they're going to be regardless, I'm going to try to take care of those now, though. On the path to discovery, constant improvement and trying to be better at this than I was the episode before, I found that if you put the body filler in holes from the backside, it lends itself to making the body smoother when you go to sand it off later. Of course, you'll see those results here in just a second. Yeah, that's pretty good. Moving on. As a space-saving measure, I'm going to cut out the area where the engine would actually be in the molding if it were there. The reason for this is simple. It's scaling. You see, if this were a real vehicle, a millimeter wouldn't matter, but here, a millimeter is over 4 inches. So where the engine would be is going to go. I'm going to put everything together in a quick fitment test to make sure that everything fits together before I actually try to put the roof in. Yeah, it looks like everything's lining up okay. I'm going to grind out what remains of the glass so that I can put the roof in. Alright, that looks okay. What do you say we move on to getting the body filler done now? My plan is pretty simple. I'm going to glue this piece of clear styrene into the back and then put body filler over it. Once that's complete, I'll replicate the process for the roof. Now that the bracing for the roof and the tailgate's putty is in, let's get to the putty. The process is simple enough. Goop it in until it's filled up. Once it's dry, sand it down, and if there's any gaps or holes, repeat the process. I think that'll about do it. I'll set it aside for a few hours, and when it's dry, I'll come back and sand it down. Yeah, that doesn't look terrible, but I think it's going to need another coat at least. In the meantime, let's do another fitment test. It looks like the body will slide down onto the chassis pretty well once I get the excess of the tailgate chopped off. Since my paddle wheel is still on my Dremel, I might as well sand down the roof a bit. This is the exact reason that fitment tests are so important when you're putting a vehicle back together. There was just a sliver of excess chassis that was keeping the body from sliding down all the way. That's good enough. Let's get it into paint. Now, I'm not entirely sure why, but Bailey's Jeep has one black fender. Before I put mud on the body and tires, I'm going to make sure to paint that fender black. Yeah, I think that looks pretty convincing. Since the wheels I picked out are gray, I'm going to have to paint those as well. Since we're getting so close now, I'm going to do one more fitment test before I paint the mud on and get this thing put back together. Oh my word, it fits. What do you say we make this thing a little dirty? Note to self, the toothbrush paint trick does not work with regular paintbrushes. It only results in a thick layer of paint on your thumb. I'm going to finish making this thing muddy and then pass it off to Foggy for the details. With that, it's on to the glamour shots.